Hi everyone. In this video, we'll continue to talk about arrays, which we've already seen. So this set of slides just goes over some more information, does a little bit of a review that you might need to know about arrays. So just to remind you of the syntax, I'll go through what an int array looks like. And so basically remember, integers or ints are 32 bits long. So if I set up an array of length 7 here, each of these ints that are being held is a length of 32 bits and it's contiguous in memory. And so I've basically made this array of 7 elements, which is 8, 6, 7, 5, 3, 0, 9. And I can also write it as this index and this element. So I know that at index 0, I have element 8, and so on until index 6. Now, the way that I declare that in Java syntax is going to be int, then open and close bracket, I named it numbers, is equal to new int 7. So remember also that we index starting at 0, so that's why index 0 is 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is index, the 6th index is the last one, but the total length of the array is 7. Now to set the value at each of the indices, I just can go through and do numbers at 0 is equal to 8 and so on and so forth. Good, so this is just to remind you a little bit of what that syntax looked like. We've talked before about for loops and as well while loops. Another kind of loop that's very useful in the context of arrays is what's called a for each loop. A for each loop enables you to traverse an array sequentially without having to use an index variable. So let's look at an example. For double E colon array. So what does this mean? Well, I have a array, which is apparently called array, which is of doubles. Right? Double, and then this is array, and it's just going to be set to something. I don't know what that is. But now, for basically what this loop is saying is that for each element E that's in the array, I'm going to print out that element E. So you can read this as, for each double in the array, call each one and do the following. Here's just another example. For string day, in days of week, system.out.println day. So you can imagine here with a string array called days of week, which is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and so on, it'll just print out each of those days. So this is a way to traverse the array called days of week. Here I have a small exercise to test your understanding. I won't give the answer, but you can, of course, pause the video and try to figure it out, which is how would you rewrite the following loops using a for loop with iteration rather than for each, which I have the two examples from the previous slide, for double E in array and for string day in days of week. So I need to replace the statements inside the parentheses with some sort of iteration. You can pause the video to try and think of this. Moving on, I would like to talk about passing strings to the main method. So remember, every time we've started a Java program, we always have a main method, and it's public static void main, and in parentheses, I have string open and close square bracket args. And we've not yet talked about what's inside these parentheses. But now that we know what arrays are, we can start to understand what this means. The main method is taking as a parameter a string array that's called args that gets passed to it every time we run our code. So how do you use it? Well, all you're going to do if you're running your code is you're going to do Java, right? That's how we always run our code. Whatever the name of the program is, and then your list of arguments, which are separated by spaces. Let's look at a more fleshed out example. So here I have some code which all it does is take in string args and then does a for each loop that we just talked about, string arg in args, and prints out each of the arguments. And now when we run it, let's take a look. We'll compile it, and then here we run it. Java string arguments, hello, my name is Java. So you can see that each of these words are separated by a space, and what the program then does is just prints out each of those on its own line. You can, of course, take more time to think about this, and as well think about maybe what kinds of calculations you might want to do that the user gives as part of running the code right away. To remind you about indirection a little bit, arrays are complex data types. So in other words, they're a composition of many other data types. And the main kind of issue that appears for you when you're practically working with this is the fact that we reference arrays by where they are in the memory. And so something like this statement, which is the days of week, I have an array called string days, and it's just equal to a list of strings that are each of the days of the week. And I say, oh, can you just print out these days for me, right? Can you do that right here? Well, Java tries to do something right here, but all it prints out is this memory address. So arrays are complex data types, so we can't just go ahead and print something. We have to do something a little bit more complicated, and we're going to have to go element by element. One of the other consequences of arrays being a complex data type is you can't just use an assignment operator to copy arrays into each other. So array 1 is equal to array 2 does not copy array 2 to array 1. Instead, it sets array 1's memory address to array 2. So let's think about what this means with an example. I'm going to set array 1 right here into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what does that look like for array 1 is we'll have these indices 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the value will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And what you think is happening when you set array 2 is equal to array 1 is you might think that you're making a copy for array 2, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But you'll notice now I'm saying, look at this code right here, array 2 at 3 is equal to 10. Okay, well, I update this to 10, but when I print this out, here, I'm printing out the things in array 1, and notice, I have 1, 2, 3, 10, 5. And that's because when you tried to copy array 2, it's not a copy. It actually just points array 2 to the same place as array 1, and therefore when you changed array 2, it also changed array 1. So if you actually want to copy an array, you're going to have to go element by element. So if you do want to copy an array, one way to do it is to copy each element in a loop individually. So let's say I have array 1, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I declare array 2, which is a new int of length the same as array 1. And I have here a for loop, and I'm going to copy manually starting at index 0, which is I is equal to 0. I is less than array 1 dot length, and then I'm just going to iterate over the indices of the array. And I'm going to set at each position array 2 at I is equal to array 1 at I. And in this case, because I'm setting this individually element by element, it actually does copy array 2 into a totally different location, and you can change it differently from the way you change array 1. There are some other ways to copy an array, which I'll just show you quickly here. You can do system.array copy, source array, source position, target array, target position, and length. Or you can do int, open close bracket, copied array is equal to source array.clone. Let's look at how either of those two look if you want to copy an array. So if you want to use system.array copy, well, in this case, my source array is array 1, and my target array is array 2. And since I just want to copy the whole thing over, my source position is 0, because I'm starting at the 0th index, so that's 0 here, and starting at 0 here, and I'm just going to copy over the whole length. And you'll notice here that these elements, they match up in length, so everything is okay. And then the third way to do it is to do int copied array is equal to source array.clone. In this case, my copied array is array 2. And my array 1 is the source array. And so all three of these will do the same thing in terms of copying your array into a new position. Each one of these works. Clone is kind of like the cleanest way to do it, and it's also the newest thing that Java has provided recently. This slide is the last one for this video, and it just summarizes some implications about passing by reference. So let's talk about what this means. Arrays will change if you pass them to a method, whereas variables will not. Things like int and char and double are primitive data types, and so they are passed by value. Arrays are not primitive, and therefore they are passed by reference. Passing by reference means that the program actually just gives the memory address instead of the value. So that's in contrast to passing by value, which is what the primitive data types do. Now, passing elements of an array doesn't do this. Okay, so that's all I have for you today. We'll talk more about arrays and passing by reference soon, but hopefully this particular set of slides gave you some more insight into how arrays behave and how to manage them. Thank you for watching.